Welcome to our talk on Stopgap Medical Maker Response to COVID-19. I am Udaya, presenting the work we did last summer in understanding the organization of medical devices in a safe and timely manner. Personal protective equipment was in short supply over the summer of 2020. Overseas supply of devices dried up, and lockdown measures across the US closed down local manufacturing plants. Manufacturing regulations were relaxed by state and federal authorities, especially the FDA's emergency use authorization encouraged temporary response from the wider community. Our other paper on grassroots maker response describes the use of online communities. This study is about institutional response. Medical, engineering, and research institutions collaborated with maker communities to create PPE for healthcare settings. We set out to understand making across two stages of crisis. The first from the stage where shortage was acute between March to May and persisted through the months of May to August. We interviewed 13 organizers who acted as go-betweens or intermediaries, managing makers across 8 organizations in 5 US regions. Notably, only 2 of them are healthcare providers themselves. These 6 types of PPE was mentioned by all of them and remain accessible in design repositories. We framed our findings around repair, keeping in mind this unusual crisis. Instead of the lens of innovation typically used in HCI to understand maker activity, we wanted to learn how reuse, repurposing, and repair drives the making process. We found institutions prioritized PPE that increase their stockpiles for immediate use. The process of prototyping and production as a key area of focus for our participants led to insights into how they produce at scale. Lastly, the expertise and skill of volunteers were managed through clear protocols for safety. Priorities changed based on hospital needs. As one clinician maker in our study said, there's no debating the power of distributed manufacturing and saying when the supply chain goes down, you have the ability to manufacture things on premises. But to say you're going to manufacture everything, even if a highly producible part like this one for an expensive ventilator existed, they would rather focus on maximizing the 3D printers used for face shields on premises. On the other hand, off hospital premises in an academic lab, we heard of how industry partners like Prusa, a 3D printing company, were trying to get people who have machines and networks to print device parts. And this aspect of community production of devices is well understood in low-scale settings like academic labs where materials may be low. The lab's capacity was to create 300 parts, and they would 3D print them and drop them off at the hospital areas. This kind of effort became clear to us in understanding the intermediaries' role between communities. So intermediaries would not only prototype designs and protocols, but also procure materials and partners in their local community to start working towards the production of devices and parts. Their main role was to establish safe use, find sources, and maintain quality. But as the pandemic progressed and repeated shortages occurred over 6 months, they would return to prototyping devices and parts over and over again. But they were able to hand off their responsibilities to other parts of the community based on these protocols and designs. Medical experts, industry experts, as well as makers as volunteers could step in and take over for intermediaries. This revealed a community production cycle to us. Framing the process from the point of view of repair let us understand that the activity intermediaries undertook at institutions was basically establishing, repurposing designs for safe use. Not so much innovation, where they could establish protocols for safe production elsewhere. Then they redistributed these protocols and designs to volunteers in the community apart from partners in the industry. It's in creating this kind of manufacturing momentum where we had lessons to take away for the HCI community. The scale of unprecedented making effort for healthcare use was possible because of the kind of efforts that intermediaries took to make community roles possible. The first implication is in understanding how we create decentralized tools like the NIH 3D Print Exchange to include different kinds of technologies and materials. The second implication was to understand both material and human networks and the role they play and should be considered in policy regulations. The main takeaway of our study is that community production happened at scale. It was made possible through distributed manufacturing, and these systems could use better design to ensure community participation over time. I hope you will read our papers and look forward to your questions.